Discover 8 shocking carbs, 4 you must avoid, and 4 amazing ones to transform your health after 60. As Betty sat in the unfamiliar school gymnasium, folding her arms tightly against her chest, she felt like a leaf in a storm. The nutritionist stood at the front, gesturing animatedly as the words "shocking truths" echoed through the fluorescent-lit space, sending a current of unease through her. She had always prided herself on creating magical family dinners filled with comfort. Those fluffy mashed potatoes, smothered in butter, were her crown jewel. But now, a voice in her head questioned, what if those mashed potatoes were secretly sapping her energy? The thought clenched at her stomach. How could she let go of the traditions that defined her home and her nurturing spirit? Betty's mind whirled as the nutritionist talked about hidden carbs, the ones in fresh produce that can rejuvenate. Her racing heart wrestled with guilt for even considering turning her back on family recipes. Memories flooded back, her grandchildren's laughter as they gobbled down her famous pot roast, the way their eyes lit up at her warm apple pie. Each joyous moment now felt tainted by the shadow of a diagnosis and her dwindling energy. How could she even begin to introduce change when the thought of her family's disappointment seeped into her veins like poison? Determined yet filled with doubt, she resolved to seek guidance. A local cafe, with the aroma of garlic and spice enveloping her like a warm hug, seemed a sanctuary. Michael, the chef, was warm and engaging, but her initial excitement was quickly clouded by the familiar weight of her son's disapproval. "Mom, you don't need to trouble yourself with that stuff. You've been fine the way you've always done it," he had echoed when she first mentioned her plans over coffee. Deep down, she hesitated, torn between wanting to embrace change and fearing the loss of all she held dear. Every time Betty attempted to introduce a new dish, a vibrant quinoa salad that sang of freshness, a pan of roasted veggies bright with color, it was met with resistance. Mark's simmering criticism replayed in her mind, a record stuck on a harsh note. "This isn't what we're used to. Why fix what wasn't broken?" The words stung. She feared the very thing that empowered her was now becoming a source of tension. Thanksgiving rolled around, and a battlefield was set at their dining table. Both tradition and innovation clashed like titans. The room was thick with uncertainty as each family member eyed the unfamiliar offerings. Betty felt the tension prickle her skin as conversations about the quinoa flew into whispers, her eyes darting to her grandchildren as they quietly nudged their heritage food onto their plates. The salty air of indecision mixed with the sweetness of gratitude. "Where's the sweet potatoes?" someone ventured. "What do you think you're doing?" Mark's words were fierce, a reminder that such change came laced with friction. But beneath the bubbling resentment was something deeper, the love that had always been the foundation of her family. Just as despair threatened to spiral, a flicker of hope ignited within her, a hint that maybe, just maybe, this collision of the old and new meant that they were all on the cusp of something profound. She clenched her fork, the severity of the moment clashing with the traditional warmth of the day, and for the first time, she felt the cracks in their family wall opening just a bit. Little did she know that this storm was only the beginning. The future hung uncertain. The days following Thanksgiving were a whirlwind of emotions for Betty. As she tidied the kitchen, thoughts of that chaotic dinner tumbled through her mind like the autumn leaves swirling outside her window. The quinoa salad had sat untouched on the table, an island of unfamiliar nourishment amidst the sea of beloved comforts. She could still feel Mark's penetrating gaze, a blend of confusion and worry that made her chest tighten. Each time she had tried to speak about healthy eating since then, the familiar barrier between her desires and her family's apprehensions felt more like a formidable wall. How could she navigate through this labyrinth of tradition while still moving forward? The tension clung to her like humidity in the summer air, and doubts about her culinary aspirations began to fester. Yet beneath this emotional turmoil, a flame ignited within her, a desire to reclaim not just her health, but also her agency in the kitchen. She couldn't allow fear to overshadow her determination. Betty decided to take a step further. She enrolled in a cooking class aimed at seniors that promised fresh, health-focused recipes. The following Tuesday, she walked into the Culinary Center, a small, sunlit space filled with laughter and the comforting aromas of sautéing vegetables. Her heart raced with anticipation, reflecting both hope and hesitation. This was a territory she wanted to conquer, but she still carried the weight of her family's expectations on her shoulders. As the instructor, a lively woman named Carla, began the session, Betty found herself absorbed by the energy of the room, a stark contrast to the dense atmosphere of her dining table just days prior.
They started with a cauliflower stir-fry, colorful and vibrant, and Betty immersed herself in the rhythm of chopping, stirring, and mixing. The action felt liberating. "Food is joy," Carla exclaimed as she tossed a handful of diced herbs into the pan. "It should make you feel alive." Betty's heart swelled. For the first time, food felt like more than just fuel or family obligation. It was an art form, a canvas for her creativity. With each new dish, she discovered a part of herself that had long remained dormant, a hidden talent just waiting to be unearthed.
During the class, she formed connections with others who shared similar journeys, grandmothers redefining their health, embracing the new while holding tight to the old. Together, they laughed, shared stories of resistance from their families, and celebrated every small victory in the kitchen. But there was a fire still brewing within her, a growing urge to confront Mark, to share this new perspective with him. That night, she prepared a medley of roasted vegetables topped with fresh herbs, determined to introduce these novel flavors into the familiar landscape of their dinners once again. She wanted him to see that change, while daunting, could also be delightful. As she set the table, her heart pounded with both excitement and trepidation. What would Mark say when confronted with these new offerings, these innovations crafted from her newfound skills? Would he embrace this shift she so desperately sought? The uncertainty twisted in her stomach, but she couldn't back down now. She had tasted autonomy in the kitchen. Just as she plated the final dish, her phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "What's for dinner? Hope it's the usual?" Betty stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. How could she explain her journey without causing another fracture in their family dynamics? Was now the moment to plant the seeds of change? She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. This was a pivotal moment. The time had come to face her fears head-on and redefine what it meant to gather as a family around the dinner table. With her heart racing, she began to type. "You might be surprised." Betty's mind raced as she considered how to convey her message to Mark. Each word she typed felt weighted with significance. This wasn't just about dinner. It was about asserting her newfound identity, her culinary evolution, and, more importantly, her right to change. She hit send, heart pounding, the escape from traditional recipes finally unleashed. A silence fell over the kitchen as she monitored her phone, waiting for Mark's response. She could feel the walls of doubt creeping back, chewing away at the exhilaration she had felt just moments before. What if he dismissed her efforts? What if he refused to even taste her dinner? Then her phone buzzed again. Mark's text arrived. "What do you mean? Did you make something different?" There was no turning back. Betty took a deep breath and answered. "I made a roasted vegetable medley with fresh herbs. I think you'll like it. It's different from the usual, but I believe it can be good for us." She couldn't help but feel vulnerable as she stared at her culinary creation, all the colors melding together, their vibrancy a testament to her willingness to explore her food journey. Shortly after, Mark stepped through the door, a wave of unfamiliar scents hitting him as he entered the kitchen. His brows knitted together, and Betty noted the flicker of skepticism in his eyes as he surveyed the table. The untouched VBA, a reminder of lack of faith, stood nearby, a painful emblem of unvoiced traditions. "Is this it?" he asked tentatively, gesturing at the array of colors on his plate. "Just try it," she urged, the tremor in her voice betraying her confidence. "It's healthy and delicious. I think you'll be surprised." He hesitated, spoon hovering over the dish. In that moment, the room felt charged with unacknowledged tension. Every moment was a confrontation between the past and this newfound desire that Betty had unearthed within herself. Finally, Mark took a bite. His eyes flicked up to meet hers. There was a heavy beat of silence before he spoke. "It's good." Relief washed over Betty, warming her from the inside. But his approval hardly alleviated her unease. Was it just a polite compliment, or was he genuinely open to this change? As he continued to chew, she watched him, searching for signs of acceptance or reluctance in his posture, his face. "That's really nice, Betty, but—" he hesitated, the tension in his voice palpable. "What about the kids? They're used to things being a certain way." The weight of his words struck her deeply, echoing back to the constraints she felt suffocated by, the safety net of tradition that seemed so comforting yet stifling. The doubt crashed in yet again. Was she ready to stand firm against the current of expectations? "I want to make our meals healthier," she said slowly, every word laced with determination. "Times are changing, and so must we." Her gaze locked with his, summoning immense courage. Could she challenge the norms and carve a path where food brought joy instead of obligation? Mark sighed, a trace of reluctance in his expression.
"I guess we can try, but it's not going to be easy." "Nothing worth having ever is," Betty replied, the weight of her resolution hardening into clarity. They shared the rest of the meal in a silence that felt different, charged with new possibilities. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could conquer past expectations and carve out her path, brick by brick. Yet, as she cleared the table, the flicker of uncertainty returned, leaving her pondering just how far this ripple of change could reach. Everyone might not be as receptive as Mark. What if the kids resisted? The evening air felt heavy with this new realization, the challenge looming ever larger. Could she navigate each hesitation, each opposition, as she ventured deeper into her journey of culinary self-discovery? She grabbed her phone, considering reaching out to her classmates, her allies in change. Solidarity had been a light in her new endeavors, but would it be enough against the tide of family tradition? With that question lingering in her mind, she readied herself for what was next, ready to face not just resistance at home, but the larger battle, how to turn her newfound culinary passion into a family-wide transformation that encompassed love, understanding, and health.
Betty took a deep breath, knowing her journey was just beginning. The moment had arrived to forge ahead, but the looming question pressed at the back of her thoughts. How would she balance these two worlds, her expectations and her family's? Betty stood in the kitchen, her thoughts swirling like the remnants of the roasted vegetable medley she had prepared. The evening sunlight filtered through the window, casting gentle shadows that danced on the walls, shadows that felt both comforting and confining. The realization that Mark's acceptance did not automatically grant her victory echoed in her mind. There would be bigger hurdles ahead, none more daunting than the reactions of her children. She couldn't afford to let the doubts engulf her. Her resolve began to solidify into a plan. If she were to change their family's eating habits, she would need to win the kids over. But how? They were used to the familiar comforts of the mac and cheese and frozen pizza era, akin to a second language for them. Anything beyond that might come off as not just different, but unwelcome. Betty poured herself a glass of water, her body pulsating with the nervous energy of uncharted territory. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from her friend Ella, a reminder about their meeting for the culinary course they had enrolled in together. Why not invite her over for a cooking session? She could use Ella's expertise to showcase healthier recipes that were also appealing to kids. Maybe if they were involved in the process, they would be more open to the changes. Settling at the table, Betty mulled over her plan. She typed out a message to Ella, outlining her thoughts. "Would it be okay for you to come over this weekend? I'd love your help to create some kid-friendly meals that are also healthy." As she hit send, the gravity of her mission hit her. It wasn't merely about her own aspirations anymore. It was about reshaping the family's culture, and that required a tactful approach. She needed to think about flavor, presentation, and how to involve her children in all stages, from cooking to tasting. The task ahead began unraveling like a puzzle, with pieces scattered haphazardly, leaving her both exhilarated and anxious. After a few moments, Betty decided to pull out her old cookbook, the one that had collected dust over the years. Flipping through the pages, nostalgia flooded her. Each recipe echoed the love put into family dinners during her childhood. But now she wanted to navigate those same traditions toward a healthier outcome, without dismissing the memories attached to them. Determined, she started drafting a grocery list, prioritizing fresh ingredients over packaged items. Imagining her children in the kitchen, stirring, laughing, and learning, brought a warmth to her heart. Would they find excitement in the colorful array of vegetables? Would they be curious enough to explore these new flavors? Then came the chilling thought. What if they outright rejected everything she planned? What if she failed to connect with them amid this transformation? The weight of potential disappointment loomed like a shadow. Betty shook her head, pushing through the doubt. She had faced reactions more dire than refusal before. This was about evolution, not just for her kitchen, but for the entire family unit. It was a process, one that required her fortitude and an open heart to nurture and support her children's whims and whispers. That evening, as she tucked the kids into bed, she slipped into their individual rooms, watching as they drifted off safely into slumber. The next morning, Betty would take them on a mini grocery adventure, involving them in choosing the healthy ingredients they would experiment with together. Would it be scary? Yes. Would it be messy? Certainly. But if these were the constructed experiences she aimed for, wouldn't it be worth it? With her resolve cementing into a plan, Betty recognized that this was more than just a culinary shift. It was about bonding with her children, building trust, and creating a new aspect of their family identity. The kitchen would become a space of discovery, laughter, and love. She knew she had to brace for potential resistance, but reminded herself that change always came with reluctance. Agonizing over what lay ahead was futile.
She had to rise above it. That evening, with her phone in hand, she snapped a picture of the new groceries she had bought for their forthcoming cooking session and posted it on social media, captioning it, "Tomorrow marks the beginning of a new culinary journey with my kids. Who's ready to roll up their sleeves?" As the likes poured in, Betty felt a flicker of anticipation. Friendships from afar could fuel her fire, and she'd step onto this journey armed with support. Little did she know, as she set her path toward healthier eating, the personal struggle she faced that night would soon slip into deeper emotional territory, the moment she would confront the very roots of her culinary fears, her own childhood memories of food. The transformation ahead promised to be more than just about vegetables and recipes. It would unearth connections she had long buried, edging her closer to understanding what food truly meant to her. The sun rose lazily, its golden rays spilling across Betty's kitchen floor, warming the tiles as if to ease her into her day of family experimentation. In the quiet hum of morning, the enormity of the task ahead flooded her thoughts. She glanced at the vibrant array of fresh vegetables and lean proteins, still pristine and bright. They seemed to mock her, daring her to bring her vision to life. Donna had always made cooking look so effortless. In her case, it felt more like tightrope walking. One misstep might send her crashing into the very fears she sought to overcome.
"Okay, let's do this," she whispered, each word a step forward, a promise to herself for a new beginning. As the kids sleepily shuffled into the kitchen, Betty felt her pulse quicken. They blinked at the colorful feast laid out before them. Her son Jake wrinkled his nose, while Maya, her younger daughter, eyed the bell peppers with childlike curiosity. "What's all this, Mom?" Jake mumbled around a groggy yawn, his voice thick with sleep. "This, my dear, is the start of our new adventure, cooking healthy meals together. What do you say?" She tried to inject enthusiasm into her tone, though the uncertainty tugged at her resolve. Maya, however, perked up. "Can I chop something?" Her eyes sparkled with eagerness. "Of course, we'll take it step by step," Betty replied, more impressed with her daughter's willingness. Maybe if the kids had a hands-on role, it would ease their resistance. After a quick breakfast, they set to work. Christina's cookbook opened in front of them, its pages yellowed, each fold a testament to meals past. The recipe choice was a simple stir-fry, a blend of everything from carrots to snap peas, starting with rainbow hues that were hard to resist. But just as Betty displayed the ingredients, a sharp hesitance loomed in the air. It was palpable. "Can we just have mac and cheese instead?" Jake's suggestion hung in the kitchen like the lingering scent of stale popcorn. "You know we've talked about healthier choices," she countered, her voice steadier than she felt. "How about we try to make this just as tasty together?" Jake crossed his arms, resistance painted across his face, and in that moment, doubt clouded Betty's resolution. "But it's just not what I want," he stated defiantly. She looked to Maya for support, whose small hands were already washing vegetables, a quiet act of collaboration. "Okay, let's make a deal," she began, softening her approach. "We can have this stir-fry, but how about we add some cheese on the side, just a little to kick it up a notch? After all, we want to discover something new today." Tentatively, Jake's eyes flickered with intrigue. "Okay, maybe, but if it tastes weird, we're going back to mac and cheese," he declared, a hint of humor breaking the tension. Laughter filled the space, breaking some of the earlier heaviness as they worked through the steps. Maya measured rice, Jake learned to handle the vegetable peeler with precision, and slowly they began to bond over each chopped carrot and bell pepper. The initial hesitation yielded to giggles and playful banter, something Betty realized she had missed. Yet as they continued, a voice echoing from her past whispered doubt. In the back of her mind, Betty could hear memories of her childhood, her own clashes with food, moments soaked in shame and regret after being forced to eat what she didn't want. Would she impose that same discomfort on her children? But this wasn't a battle of wills. It was a dance of discovery. They took turns stirring and seasoning, a newfound rhythm developing, and Betty reveled in this transformation. Would the meal end in cheers or groans? Only time would tell. As the stir-fry sizzled, a question loomed larger than the pan itself. What if they hated it? Would she be intruding upon their love for food comfort? Would this new chapter crumble under the weight of her expectations? With every colorful ingredient and each laugh shared, Betty sensed an inner strength growing. She began to believe that perhaps it wasn't just about the culinary revolution. It was about creating lasting memories entwined with her children's, building resilience and openness in place of reluctance. An intoxicating aroma began emanating from the stove, and with butterflies dancing in her stomach, she filled each plate, prepared to face the moments of truth. "To new adventures," she toasted, holding up her fork. Just as she felt the warmth of hope swell within her, the doorbell rang, startling her from her reverie. It was Ella, and her observations of this colorful chaos would add yet another layer of challenge to the day. The stakes were rising, and with every new face that entered her kitchen, Betty feared old wounds would resurface, ready to test her dedication to this new path. As Ella walked in, a supportive smile on her lips, Betty could only wonder what new revelations awaited them. As Ella stepped into the kitchen, the bright, chaotic scene seemed to ignite an unexpected spark in Betty. Her presence, infused with an air of casual competence, nudged Betty forward, urging her to let go of the last remnants of uncertainty. "Wow, it smells incredible in here," Ella exclaimed, surveying the colorful array of fresh food with genuine admiration. She moved closer, inspecting the sizzling stir-fry, and the warmth of her encouragement Betty's tension ease ever so slightly. "What did you end up making?" Ella eyed the vibrant vegetables with enthusiasm. It was comforting, in a way, to share this moment, yet that creeping doubt remained. "A simple stir-fry," Betty replied, her voice wavering under the weight of unsaid worries. "We're trying to cook healthier meals together. It's a bit of an experiment." "Looks like an adventure," Ella said, smiling at the kids who were now giggling as they plated their creations. Maya, with a determination that mirrored her mother's, garnished the dish with fresh herbs, while Jake tried to steal a taste right before it hit the table. But the joy in the kitchen was quickly offset by the childhood memories resurfacing. Was this really the course of action she wanted? The fear of presenting a meal that could evoke resentment was still hanging over her head like storm clouds. "What's the plan now?" Ella asked, breaking through Betty's spiral of contemplation. "Are you ready for the taste test?" Betty took a deep breath, the aroma thickening the air, grounding her in the moment. "Right."
"The taste test," she echoed, as if it were a pep rally instead of a meal presentation. "Let's do this together," Ella said, stepping beside her. "You're setting a healthy example for your kids. It's more than just food. It's about teaching them to explore." Betty felt buoyed by Ella's words, but couldn't shake the feeling of standing on the precipice of a potential failure. What if her kids didn't like it? What would that say about her not-so-hidden insecurities surrounding her ability to be a good mother and cook? "Hey, remember when we tried that vegetarian lasagna? I was convinced it would bomb, and you said it was the best thing you ever made?" Ella's comment tugged Betty from her thoughts, a reminder of the quicksilver nature of success, or disappointing failure. Laughter rang out as Jake enthusiastically took a bite, prompting an exaggerated expression that almost sent Betty into a panic. "Well?" she questioned. "Is it horrible?" He shook his head, half-heartedly suppressing a grin. "It's okay, but I meant what I said." His declaration sparked a bubble of hope within Betty. Maya, too, was quick to assert her opinion. "I liked it, Mom. Can I have more?" And just like that, the laughter surged back, dismantling the last vestiges of Betty's apprehension. The experience didn't have to be perfect to be memorable. They plunged forward, tasting and experimenting as they served themselves heaping portions, while Ella jumped in, ready to critique in the most constructive way possible. "You could add a touch of soy sauce next time," she suggested, a light jokiness evident in her tone. As they all settled around the table, the atmosphere thick with anticipation, Betty sensed her resolve hardening. The doubts were still there, but they didn't define her path. This moment, this mishmash of fear, joy, and culinary chaos, was a turning point, not just for their meal, but for how she viewed her decisions as a parent. It was about embracing and owning those imperfections, evolving through them rather than hiding. "What was hard for you in the kitchen today?" Ella prodded gently, her eyes scanning Betty's face. The question hit a sensitive spot. It called for vulnerability, but it was exactly what Betty needed to confront. Opening up to new experiences, letting go of the fear that they wouldn't understand or appreciate it, she admitted, each word stripping away a layer of her protective facade. Ella nodded, recognizing the significance of this shared moment. "It's the same with every new venture, isn't it? You just have to show up." And as the kids chattered and nudged each other with playful elbows, a realization crystallized for Betty. Building a strong family culture included leaning into the discomfort of change. This revelation spun around her mind, creating the foundation for a different path. "Tomorrow, I'd like to turn the tables," Betty said, her voice firming with a new conviction. "I want to let you two take the lead in what we cook."
Jake's eyes widened, while Maya practically jumped in her seat. "Can we do that?" "Yes, and I'm counting on you to surprise me," Betty replied, excitement igniting in her chest. Before she could brace herself, a melody of ideas surged through her mind as she started planning. What if this could be the beginning of something larger? With that glimmer of hope, she felt elated and terrified. As they continued to eat, she could almost taste the sweet possibilities ahead, but doubt prickled at her edges. What if her children turned baking into something frivolous? Would they even take the challenge seriously? Just then, the phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her back into the present. It was a message from a group she had joined to improve her cooking skills.
The notification felt like a beacon, illuminating a path she hadn't fully committed to yet. With her heart racing, she glanced at Ella, who was now chatting with Maya, both animated in their discussion, and it dawned on her. The real cooking adventure had only just begun. What awaited in these next steps? The weight of thought lingered, grappling with anticipation as thoughts about her next move wrestled in her mind, ready to unfold a larger narrative of change. The morning light streamed through the kitchen window like a promise of new beginnings, illuminating the countertops cluttered with utensils and an array of ingredients. Betty stood at the helm, a hint of trepidation swirling in her stomach. Today wasn't just about cooking. It was about handing over authority, an act both liberating and terrifying. "Maya, Jake, come here," she called, trying to suppress the flutter of anxiety rising within her. The enthusiasm of last night still lingered in the air, fusing her hopes with palpable tension. "What are we making?" Maya asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "It's your turn to lead today's cooking adventure," Betty announced, her voice soaring even as doubts clawed at her insides. She watched the kids exchange glances, their expressions shifting from surprise to excitement. "Really? We get to choose?" Jake's voice bubbled with a mix of disbelief and glee. "Absolutely, but remember, you'll need to take it seriously. Cooking is not just about throwing ingredients together." As they debated ideas, with Maya inspired by colorful salads and Jake intent on all things cheesy, Betty took a step back, both literally and metaphorically. Here she was, relinquishing control. What if they faltered? Could they possibly handle the responsibility? The specter of her own insecurities loomed, threatening to cast a shadow on their creativity. "It's okay, Mom, just give us a little time to figure it out," Maya reassured her, a hint of maternal wisdom in her youthful confidence. "All right, you've got 30 minutes, Betty said, her heart racing at the thought of how she would react if they strayed too far from her own culinary ideals.
As the children rummaged through the pantry, excitement filled the kitchen. Betty forced herself to take a step back, leaning against the counter as she observed them whispering plans, their faces animated with inspiration. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't the one driving the agenda. She was merely a facilitator in their creative process. Yet, within that moment, she confronted a deeper fear. Was she still relevant in the cooking domain if her children were given room to shine? The realization was jarred. Their successes or failures were reflective of her journey, not a measure of her worth, but a demonstration of her growth as a parent. "You know, it feels good to see you both engaging with food. It's more than just ingredients. It's memories, right?" Betty offered, trying to nurture this newfound exploration. "Yes," Jake declared, excitement radiating from him, "like that time we made pizza and I decorated it all crazy." In the whirlwind of flour and spices, she began to see clearly. This wasn't just about cooking. It was about collaboration, creation, and communicating love through food. As they worked together, her heart swelled with a mix of pride and fear. What if they burned something, or chose recipe flavors that clashed horribly? Time slipped away, and soon the kitchen echoed with the bubbling noise of their creation. The fragrance filled the room, a kaleidoscope of aromas weaving together their efforts into a culinary tapestry. "Ella, can you come try our creation?" Jake shouted excitedly, eyes full of anticipation and validation. Before Betty could process the whirlwind they had created, Ella appeared at the doorway, curiosity glimmering in her eyes. "What do we have here?" The kids beamed, revealing their dish with the tentative hopefulness of artists unveiling their masterpiece. "It's a surprise. You'll love it," Maya exclaimed. Betty couldn't help but hold her breath. As Ella took a tentative bite, silence pressed heavily in the air. The moment hung on a precipice. Success or disappointment shadowed in equal measure. "What do you think?" Betty asked, her instincts shifting from one of a facilitator to a worried spectator, her heart thumping in her chest. Ella chewed thoughtfully, then her face broke into a wide smile. "This is amazing! Who knew we had such talented chefs in the kitchen?" The joy ignited a firestorm of happy chatter. The kitchen erupted once more into laughter amidst the chaos. In that swirl, Betty recognized something profound. By stepping back, she had not lost her place, but found a new one. She wasn't the only one with the potential to spark joy and create something beautiful. As they cleaned up, however, a nagging thought nagged at her. Would this newfound exploration lead to more creative ownership from her children, or further become a polarizing endeavor? Could she truly keep this balance of independence and guidance intact in future cooking adventures?
The next morning, she scrolled through the cooking group notifications again. There was an upcoming competition, one that required sharing not just recipes, but the stories and personal journeys behind them. Could she take the plunge yet again into an uncharted territory? As uncertainty wrestled with her excitement, one thought echoed through her mind. The time had come to face the full breadth of her journey, as both a mother and a culinary explorer.
Could she find the storytelling voice that inspired her children? Would she dare? Navigating these uncharted emotional waters, she felt more afraid than ever, yet more determined to learn and grow. What awaited her just beyond this threshold? Betty's fingers hovered over her phone screen, uncertainty coursing through her. The competition was just a few weeks away. She envisioned the layout of her kitchen, ingredients laid out, pots boiling, amidst the backdrop of her children eagerly helping. Yet that vision twisted into a chaotic mess, the sounds of bustling children mixing with her internal monologue. Did she have what it took to share not just recipes, but the essence behind them? The thought of storytelling stirred something deep within her, and a light began to flicker. Sharing hers could indeed be a gateway to fostering her children's passion, an intersection between their experiences and her culinary journey. Still, self-doubt nagged at the edges of her thoughts. What story would she even tell? The memories of culinary mishaps danced through her mind, juxtaposed with the pride of her children's newfound confidence. She spent the day gathering her memories. Images of her mother cooking while sharing tales of family traditions flooded her consciousness. Cooking isn't just about food, her mother's voice echoed in her head. It's about who we are. A surge of inspiration bolstered her determination. Maybe this wouldn't just be about her. It could serve as a mirror reflecting her children's experiences. But what if they felt overwhelmed? What if they found her attempts at sharing far too poignant and personal? That evening, she gathered them around the table, the remnants of their afternoon's collaborative cooking project warming their hearts and filling their stomachs. "Okay, team," she declared, battling the rising apprehension. "I need your help with something special. We have a cooking competition coming up, and I want to share not just a recipe, but a story. I want us to discuss what makes our meals meaningful." Curiosity lit up Maya's face, while Jake's brows knitted in contemplation. "Do you mean like how Grandma used to make her famous stew?" Maya asked, her tone grave with the seriousness of remembering past family gatherings. "Exactly." Betty's heart felt buoyant at the thought that her children were already grasping the connection. "And not just that, but how our cooking has brought us together. Maybe we can share a special dish we've created as a family." Jake sprang up.
"We could include the pizza story and the creative salad I made before." The energy in the room shifted, and Betty felt her anxiety giving way to excitement. "Yes, and how about making a video of us cooking together to show our journey in the kitchen?" The idea thrilled her, yet it presented a chilling vulnerability. How would they portray their individual strengths? Maya nodded vigorously. "But we should practice before we show anyone. What if it doesn't go well?" "Then it won't," Betty stated firmly, without letting self-doubt cloud her resolve. "It's about the journey, not just the finished product. We are learning together, and will only get better." In that moment, she realized this wasn't solely about her own growth. It was also about teaching her children resilience, the importance of learning from mistakes. She could guide them in storytelling, and in doing that, forge stronger connections with them. As the week advanced, they brainstormed ideas. Through laughter and the occasional spat over ingredients, Betty felt a shift within herself. Every day, she would write down her thoughts and feelings, weaving her own story into the fabric of their cooking adventure. But after several days of practice, they faced an unexpected setback. The video footage they had shot, the one that captured their spontaneity, was lost, the tragic result of a malfunctioning phone. "Do we start over?" Jake asked, disappointment etched across his face. "No, we don't." The conviction in her voice surprised even her. "Life is about making choices and adapting to them. Let's shift gears. What we've learned is what counts, and we can create new memories. What do you think we should do?" As they stood surrounded by empty plates and remnants of meals past, she sensed their eyes ignite with possibility. It was a moment of vulnerability, but also of empowerment. Each child looked to the other, and she could see the cogs of determination turning in their minds. Perhaps the real competition lay in their growth, not merely in the kitchen, but as a family. Yet doubt still lurked in the shadows of her mind. Was it enough to simply share their journey, or did she need to ensure their dish was truly exceptional? Thoughts danced chaotically as she felt the pressure simmering on the edge. As the stakes rose and the deadline loomed nearer, the real question surfaced. Were they ready to embrace the unpredictability of their journey and face the world with courage as a true team? Could she inspire her children to find their voices while grappling with her own unknowns? The threshold was near, and the risks ahead felt formidable. Would they be able to confront the looming challenge, or would the waves of uncertainty wash away their hard-won progress? In the days following their setback, life in Betty's kitchen transformed into a mix of creativity and chaos. The loss of their video had sparked a renewed energy. It was no longer just about redoing what had been lost. It was about embracing the unpredictability of their shared journey. Betty found herself restless, pacing between counters, ideas dancing in her mind like flour in the air. "Let's not just redo the video,"
she suggested one afternoon, looking at Jake and Maya diligently working with fresh ingredients. What if we reinvent the entire concept? We can make it even better than before. Maya's eyes brightened. We can create a theme. Like, what is our family's cooking legacy? Betty paused, feeling a rush of excitement mixed with fear. This wasn't just about cooking anymore. It was a deep dive into their identities. She could unpack the stories and values passed down through generations, like recipes in a family cookbook. How do we figure out what that is? Jake asked, his brow furrowed with seriousness. That's our next step, Betty replied, her voice steady. We need to reflect on what cooking means to us. We each have a unique experience. Let's explore our past dishes and why they matter. As the conversation unfolded, Betty felt the familiar warmth of connection. They began sharing thoughts. Maya recalled every Saturday spent making pancakes with her grandmother, the smell of butter, the way it filled the house with comfort. When Grandma made pancakes, it felt like a hug, she said, a smile spreading across her face. Jake pondered more introspectively. For me, it's our pizza nights. It's where we all help out. It's kind of our family tradition. A rush of pride surged through Betty. She realized this was a pivotal learning moment, enforcing the very values she hoped to instill in her children: community, togetherness, continuity. But her own memories started colliding with those of her children, sparking a rapid inner conflict. Was she sharing enough of herself? Was she holding back in fear of vulnerability? She took a deep breath, guiding her thoughts. What if I share my own stories about cooking? About the times I messed up but made something beautiful out of it anyway? Like the burnt lasagna, Jake chuckled, and Betty laughed, remembering the tears and laughter that followed that fateful dinner. Exactly, she exclaimed, her heart racing. It's not just about the recipes. It's about the love behind them, the lessons learned, and the joyful chaos that comes with being a family. The urgency of their brainstorming sessions stirred something profound within her. Betty realized that her responsibilities as a parent stretched beyond the culinary realm. She was planting seeds of resilience, creativity, and authenticity in their children's minds. The upcoming competition was no longer a mere test of their culinary skills. It transformed into a vessel for personal expression, a stage for showcasing perseverance. Yet that growing realization dangled a double-edged sword. With every layer of disclosure she peeled back, the potential for critique crept in. What if they shared too much?
Would they find strength in vulnerability, or would it expose them in ways they weren't ready for? The kitchen became a battleground of ideas, reflecting her internal struggle. As they gathered notes and arranged the storyboard for their video, an unexpected darkness lingered just beneath the excitement. Were they ready to reveal the depths of their own stories? The weight of her past loomed larger now, fusing with her determination to protect her children while encouraging their growth. With a newfound energy coursing through her veins, she resolved within herself that they could face that uncertainty, tackle the slides of vulnerability together, and craft a narrative that honored both their individual journeys and their family bond. As they leaned over a table filled with sketches and ideas, a haunting question floated through her thoughts again. Were they truly prepared to present their whole selves to the world, or would the fear of rejection now serve as another obstacle on their path? The competition date loomed ever closer, and with it the moment she knew they needed to confront her greatest fear, not just of judgment, but of truly being seen. How would they find the courage to share not only their culinary creations, but the stories behind them? She glanced at her children, the fierce glimmers of pride and excitement mingling with her own hesitations. The real challenge now loomed decisively in front of them, a test of authenticity awaiting their embrace. Betty stood before a spread of fresh ingredients, the deep colors vibrant under the kitchen lights, her heart both racing and grounded by purpose. In the hours leading to the competition, she embraced an unusual calm that was unfamiliar yet thrilling. Her kitchen had transformed from a realm of apprehension to one of discovery, a sanctuary woven with memories and aspirations. Maya fiddled with her apron, while Jake meticulously organized the spices. It was a powerful juxtaposition, This shift from Betty leading the charge to her children organically stepping into their roles as co-creators. The exchange felt like catching lightning in a bottle. It resonated with respect for the past and an eagerness to forge their path together. "Let's share the stories behind our dishes," Betty suggested, her voice holding a newfound strength. "This time, I want to bring everyone into the warmth of our past. What we cook signifies who we are." As each child described their memories, Maya's grandmother's pancakes and Jake's playful pizza evenings, a tapestry of laughter and sentiment enveloped them. This was more than merely preparing for the competition. It was a moment of collective reflection where vulnerabilities could transform into joy. Betty felt the fissures of doubt begin to close, each story reinforcing their connection, stitching together their familial bond. Yet deep down, the specter of doubt still lingered.
Would the world receive their combined narrative, or would the weight of judgment crush what they had endeavored to create? Could they truly unveil so much of themselves without fear? It was a haunting question that whispered through the corners of her mind like an echo. Fueled by resolve, Betty began to see the strength in sharing their unified story as a family. It would serve not just as an artistic reflection, but as a declaration of their collective transformation. Each ingredient, each technique, each story was a brushstroke on the canvas of their lives, and she tilted her head back, allowing this empowering thought to wash over her. As they chopped, stirred, and measured, Betty encouraged her children to lean into each other's creativity, allowing Jake to take the lead on pizza making, while Maya suggested colorful vegetable toppings. They reveled in the process, each laughter simmering with warmth as the aroma enveloped them, every bite a gesture of love and unity. It was empowering to witness them daring to create and contribute, challenged by the intricacies of cooking together. The competition day arrived with dazzling anticipation. As they set up their cooking station, the initial jitters fluttering through her vanished in the explosion of colors spread around them. "We're not just presenting dishes, we're presenting ourselves," Betty reminded her children, her voice steady with conviction. When the camera rolled, Betty felt herself step into a different version of herself, one who was ready to blend tradition with innovation, hearts with culinary arts, and childhood memories with newfound adventures. As she glanced at Jake and Maya beside her, they soared forward with excitement, warming her heart with each laugh shared in their kitchen chaos. They explained their inspirations, their stories, and what food meant to them, a vibrant homage to their grandmother's love and shared experiences that defined their family. The audience leaned into their narrative. The weight of Betty's earlier fears began to lift as connection sparked among the crowd. Ultimately, as they plated their finished dishes, Betty understood at that moment, not achieving perfection was not a failure. It was an adventure steeped in authenticity, nurtured by love. They had shared their culinary journey, and in doing so, strengthened the bonds that defined their family. In the end, the judges applauded their creativity and heartfelt stories. But for Betty, the real victory was etched into the experience. Her children had not only embraced the change, but transformed the narrative that their family shared through food. As they received their honorable mention, cheers erupted, infusing her with joy, satisfaction, and undeniable pride. Their individual growth burgeoned into a collective family triumph.
Betty realized she had conquered not just the fear of criticism, but emerged with a newfound confidence that their story mattered, that her role as a mother and creator was continually evolving. That night, as they celebrated with a simply prepared meal at home, she looked at her children with immeasurable pride. She had not just allowed them to push forward, she had guided them on a journey through the unknown, unearthing both their culinary mastery and emotional resilience. "Thanks for letting me be part of your journey," Betty said softly, looking from Maya to Jake. "You both made this adventure meaningful." Her heart swelled as they exchanged glances, a mixture of love and understanding enveloping them in a warm embrace. In that moment, Betty realized that the lessons were etched in culinary exploration and family connectivity. She had crossed a threshold in her culinary evolution. No longer was she solely the central figure in the kitchen. She had realized her children's contributions could inspire a kitchen full of creativity and love. And so with that realization, Betty realized it was no longer just her own journey, but a testament to the invincible spirit of family, and that the kitchen would forever be their shared canvas for love, healing, and triumph. Now this is your moment to be part of a growing community of culinary explorers. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these inspirational tales keep coming your way.
Comment your reactions and theories about Betty's transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and join the journey of overcoming through love and food. Your support is crucial, and we need you to keep this adventure alive. Don't wait even one more second.